Time to talk about the race for Clark County District Attorney, and the challenger joining us right now, Ozzie Fumo, joining us. Ozzie, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me, John.
You have a long history, obviously, in public service. You're now in the private sector as well. But first and foremost, why do you want to be DA?
You know, a great question. You know, I thought about it long and hard earlier in the year, and it was really the district attorney's support staff within the office who contacted me. And one thing I want to say is the district attorney's office has great attorneys in that office, great support staff. They just have lousy leadership, and it was their encouragement that really helped me want to enter this race.
What is, as you say, lousy? What is so lousy about Mr. Wolfson,
you know,
and his performance?
You know, one of the things when he got the job, he said, "I want to lead by example." And you know, we had district attorneys, David Roger, would pick up a file, come into court, fight a case. Stuart Bell before him, pick up a file, come into court, fight a case. We haven't seen that from the leadership there in 10 years. The other thing that is really discouraging, I think, within the office, and things that I heard within the office, was, you know, when he first took over, he had a person in his office, I think her name is Audrey, who stole money from not only his campaign, but from the district attorney's office. And he chose not to prosecute her. Now, these were attorneys who were doing bake sales for officers who were killed in the CC's Pizza shooting. 2 officers died. And the district attorney's office raised money for this event to help the victims' families. And she stole that money. And when Wolfson decided not to prosecute his staff, that lowered the integrity of the entire office. And it's been downhill from there. And that's not just coming from me, that's coming from people within the office. They felt it.
I'm going to ask you more about sort of some of the accusations of favoritism in a moment here, but if you're elected, what changes would you make straight away?
Straight away, I think, you know, the leadership in that office has to change. Like I said, great attorneys, lousy leadership. And it starts from the top. It starts from you picking up a file. I don't think he's been in the courtroom or done a trial since he's been a district attorney. I know that for a fact. Hasn't done a trial probably in 10 or 15 years before that as a defense attorney, which is unheard of. So just that lack of leadership there. Change that structure, put new people in. I want a district attorney's office that looks like the community. You've got 2 white males leading the criminal division. You have a civil division that hasn't changed in years. We need to shake things up a little bit, change that organizational structure, put district attorneys in there who have the experience but that look like the community that they serve.
So I get the impression here that you would want to make a pretty significant shakeup at the DA's office. Why do you think it's necessary? Aside from your feelings on Mr. Wolfson, in terms of the nuts and bolts of prosecution, why is such a shakeup needed among the rank and file?
Well, because the morale is at an all-time low. Right? People are leaving that office in droves, not just attorneys, support staff, investigators, secretaries, paralegals. They don't feel like they're a team. They don't feel like they get the support from the top down. And when I get in there, that's the first thing I want to do. Let them know that I will lead by example. I will be in the courtroom with them when I can. When the big cases are there, I will be there with them. I will be leading the fight. I'm not going to hang them out to dry. I'm not going to take files away from them and say, we're going to dismiss this case or we're not going to prosecute that one. We're going to punish the deserving, and we're going to treat everybody the same. You know, John, our laws are based on we the people, not we the privileged.
You're again touching on this idea, and I think there's almost an insinuation of favoritism in the current DA's office, and specifically with Mr. Wolfson, with maybe high-profile cases or cases involving, you were talking about with previous situations. Do you believe that the district attorney is playing favorites with certain defendants in certain cases because of connections that he has in the district, in the city?
Absolutely.
Give me an example.
Henry Nichols. Let's talk about Henry Nichols, right? That man came here from California with enough drugs to kill an army, right? Paraded through one of our casinos with enough dangerous drugs to kill everybody in that casino. Went out and partied all day, was caught in his hotel room with another woman with those drugs. And if you and I had been caught in that hotel room with that quantity of drugs under those facts, you and I would be doing 10 to life in prison. Henry Nichols in Fargo got a dismissal. A $500,000 donation to a nonprofit charity of their choice, which we still don't know what it is yet. That still hasn't been made public. And that case gets dismissed. You can't justify that. It's a
pretty strong accusation. I know we kind of addressed this with Mr. Wolfson when he was here several weeks ago, and he strongly denies claims of favoritism. He says, you know, he and his office play it by the book. There is no favoritism, and if you look at their record, he stands behind it certainly. How how sure are you that there are some issues within the department that need to be addressed with that issue?
Well, I've heard it from people within the department. I've heard it
but
from
that's
people
sort of
who've taken their
hearsay,
files.
isn't it?
It's taken their files. It's people who are in the trenches with them who feel like they're disrespected because they have a case that they can prosecute, that they know they can go forward, and it's taken off their desk because of a favor to another attorney or an individual who donated to a campaign. And it's just not right. We need to treat everybody equal, right? Equal justice under the law is what we have. Everybody should be treated fairly. If we're going to give that guy that kind of bonus for those kind of facts, then we need to give everybody that kind of bonus for those kind of facts.
So let's maybe brush on the current high-profile case happening right now, recently with the Las Vegas Raider Henry Ruggs, now off the team, now accused of death, resulting a DUI resulting in death. That's a high-profile case. There's high-profile attorneys involved. How, as district attorney, would you handle that case any differently from any other similar kind of case?
Well, the first thing I would do is you have a team of district attorneys who handle DUIs, right? They take care of those cases. That's their wheelhouse, that's their expertise, that's their specialty. And you let them handle the case just like it was anybody else. You don't say, this is Henry Ruggs from the Raiders, so he gets a pass. Somebody died here. So you just treat him as defendant X the same way you would treat any other defendant who was in the same or similar circumstances, right? You don't give anybody favoritism just because they're high profile, just because they have a lot of money, or because their attorneys are. Now, if you apply the law to the facts and the person deserves to go to prison or be found guilty, that should happen. You can't just say, we're going to give this guy a pass. And that's the feeling in the office right now. They don't have that. He's behind us, he's going to let us do our work.
Just to be clear again, you're suggesting that there is some level of this favoritism.
Absolutely.
And it wouldn't exist in your district attorney's
Absolutely
office?
Not.
Okay. One of the items that Mr. Wolfson touts is some of the diversion programs they have within the DA's office. How would you either continue that, enhance it, maybe restrict it, or draw it down if you're elected?
You know, that's one of the things we need to do is do more in restorative justice, right? We can't be having death by incarceration. The war on drugs didn't work. When I first started practicing 27 years ago now, you know, if you got into drug court, you know, you were a first-time nonviolent offender with a drug case, you completed this 3-year program, you went to counseling, you were tested, you got a job, you did everything you were supposed to do, and your case was dismissed. Under the current administration, it's a condition of probation. You still have that felony on your record. You can't get a job, you can't work, and it's twisted around to something it was never intended to be. The other thing we have is veterans court, things like that. Veterans, sometimes they need to get into these programs because they committed a violent act, right? They have PTSD, they do something. The district attorney's office right now, under the current leadership, prevents those that need it the most from getting into those programs. So you get people into veterans court who are, you know, misuse of a park bench or jaywalking. Those aren't necessarily, they deserve to get some benefit too, they served our country, but it's the more violent crimes that the district attorney's office under the current administration is blocking that need those programs that aren't getting it. So what I would do is open it up, right? And if the district attorney feels that they shouldn't, a defendant should not be in that program, what I would submit, we'd have to make this a legislative change, is you argue it to the judge. That's why we elect these judges, right? They make the decision. Right now, the district attorney's office is the gatekeeper, and I would lessen that. I would open those gates so that more people could get into the programs they need. Because we're wasting money incarcerating people. It costs us as taxpayers $155 a day to keep somebody in custody, $54,000 a year. Hundreds of millions of dollars by Clark County taxpayers every year to warehouse people that don't necessarily need to be there if we could get them into these programs, and the current administration is blocking.
I believe both of you are against the death penalty, although Mr. Wolfson certainly wants to keep it on the books as the potential, sort of the threat of a penalty for a defendant. If you're a district attorney, what would you do with the death penalty? You know,
when I was a legislator, both sessions I was up there, I introduced bills or supported bills to end the death penalty. State-sanctioned murder just doesn't work. It's not a deterrent. I don't know any client. I've represented people that are charged with capital cases for years. Not one of them says, well, I thought about it. I could get the death penalty if I do this. I decided to do it anyway. It's not a deterrent. It doesn't work. We spend millions of dollars every year doing it. And I would be hard-pressed to see any case that I think would be worthy of that. The current district attorney came up to the legislature supporting it. Right? He's not opposed to it. He supports the death penalty. I'm against it. And my record shows that from my legislative history.
This is more of a prosecutor's office is law enforcement, but there's been an increase in crime, violent crimes across Clark County. What measures as a prosecutor would you take, or in the prosecutor's office could you take, to do something on the penalty phase and on the prosecution phase to try and deter this kind of activity in the community?
Right. So what we need to do is you need to protect the community. Is our biggest job is protect everybody from violent crimes. But we need to think long term on some of this stuff, right? You can't just put everybody in prison and warehouse them. First time, nonviolent offenders, drug addicted people, they deserve to get into counseling programs. We need to treat drug addiction as an illness and not a crime. The Clark County Detention Center and the prisons are ill-equipped to handle mental illness and drug addiction. We need to get those people into the programs that will help them. And if we can take them out of the prison system, like I said, not spending that $54,000 a year on that and spending, say, a $10,000 program on the outside, getting them healthy, they won't come back into the system.
So does what you're discussing and some of the measures you've discussed before, does that require more funding for the prosecutor's office or just reshuffling where the money goes?
It's reshuffling where the money goes. Eventually, we're going to save this county so much money that we're going to be able to put money back into the system. We do need to hire more prosecutors. They're leaving like crazy. Support staff is leaving like crazy. There is a need to hire more prosecutors to do the crimes, but you need to punish the deserving. We need to focus on murders, home invasions, sex assault, and not these nonviolent first-time offenders. We need to get them into programs.
Final question is this, it kind of goes back a little bit to the high-profile cases and the favoritism that you're accusing your opponent of sort of engaging in. You're a defense attorney right now. How do you disentangle yourself from cases at your firm if you're elected to the prosecutor's office? What do you do to make sure that those threads don't linger on when you're in public service again?
So we need to treat everybody the same, right? No matter who the defendant is, no matter who the attorney is, you just have to follow the law. It's a very simple formula, right? I spent my entire career defending the Constitution. And the other side, I will be there protecting the citizens of Nevada. But you have to treat every single person the same. You can't say this person has more money than that person, this person has lighter skin than that person, therefore they get a pass. That's not the way it's going to work under my administration. Everybody will be treated equally under the law. It's we the people, not we the privileged.
But I mean, if I'm a voter at home, how can I be sure that, again, because of your business and your profession right now, when you're in the prosecutor's office, there aren't still going to be some entanglements with your partners and your current law firm?
No, I would disassociate that from it. In fact, those cases would probably be conflict off. Anybody that I've represented in the past
Recused.
would be conflicted off, right? They would go to the Attorney General's office. But not every, but we've had district attorneys who are former criminal defense attorneys, and it's just the way the system works. They would conflict off those certain amount of cases, and they would proceed accordingly. But everybody in Clark County will be treated the same under the law when I'm elected district attorney. We're not going to have this favoritism anymore. The district attorney's office is no longer for sale in Clark County.
All right, well, it's going to be a very interesting race. Ozzie Fumo, thank you for joining us. We'll continue to watch the race for Clark County District Attorney.
Thank you, sir.